Okay, so my name is Ian Hazzikostas. I'm lead game director for World of Warcraft, and this is my quest. To find that which cannot be found. To hunt down the most elusive prize in all of Azeroth. To finally locate the PvP vendor. I've played this game since launch, but no matter what the year, no matter what the expansion, I've not been able to find this elusive trader. Do they even exist? Why are they so hard to track down? Would I even know the right gear to buy if I ever did find them? Probably not. But yet still I search. If only the game design team was able to put them in a more obvious or convenient place to be found more easily. If only I had some kind of power over the game team and could put the vendor basically anywhere I want. But alas, no. Once again, my search is fruitless. And I have to ask myself, why? Who benefits from PvP vendors being so difficult to find? I don't know the answer to that, but I do know one thing. It's time someone made a stand, made a difference. As Elune is my witness, Battle for Azeroth is going to be different, and people won't have to spend hours at a time lost and looking for the PvP vendor because there won't be any. It's such an obvious fix. I can't believe I never thought of it before. Ooh, maybe we can make this idea work for tier sets too. Hey Josh, what's wrong?
Oh, nothing. I'm just remembering that time back in Black Temple when I didn't get any loot drops for, seriously, ages.
That's fair enough.
Knowledge is power.
Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to another weekly reset. Taliesin and Evitel's Wondrous Wisdomshow, and this week is so jam-packed with WoW news and knowledge that it's almost a little bit embarrassing that we'll be starting today with Catwatch. And look, I know, this vicious black warsaber is really beautiful, and the undead horse horde bony boy is legit, especially for a faction so cruelly starved of horse mounts this expansion. Because Alliance get all the horses, because Alliance bias, am I right? Yeah, the Season 2 PvP vicious war mount rewards are great, which is why I am pretty pleased that we whacked out a few threes and got most of the way towards actually being able to earn them this week. But we're not going to make Catwatch as big a segment as Hippo Watch, don't worry, because honestly, how could we? I mean, the horse is cool and scary, but how round is it? It's barely even slightly round. And the cat is lithe and sexy, but is it so big it can't even fit through a gate in Borealis? No way that cat is getting stuck in that gate in all its roly-poly spherical bouncy gloriness. No, nothing will ever top Hippo Watch, and we know that, so don't worry, we're not going to go crazy on Catwatch like we did for Maurice. If only there was another perfect podgy sausage-legged round boy mount on the horizon to get excited about instead. Oh well, until then, we're just going to have to make do with developer Q&As, shocking Alliance bias that goes beyond their plentiful horse mounts, exciting new Blizzard hires, awesome spoilery looks forward into patch 8.15, a preview of an exclusive Taliesin and Evitel interview with Jeremy Fiesel, where he gave us some great reveals about 8.2, and our opening story of the week, the opening of the brand new raid, Battle for Dazar'alor, because I'm sorry, but when it comes down to it, there is never really any better time to be a WoW player than in the opening week of a new raid. Guild lists are jam-packed, voice comms are full and joyous, there's bosses to kill, there's loot to get, and all that is especially true if the raid turns out to be an absolute belter. And it certainly does appear to be the agreed consensus among the player base that in fact, yes, this raid is an absolute belter. And importantly, this isn't just my opinion, which I'll be honest wouldn't really be enough anyway, because we went into Heroic on Wednesday night and managed to not get past Jadefire Masters, because the mechanic where everyone gets teleported up to the green thing and has to deal with the charging ghost monks may as well have been genetically engineered in a vat to be the exact type of mechanic that our guild is just not built to be able to deal with at all. But we had an absolute ball failing to Jadefire Masters, and we look forward to failing just as enjoyably to all the other bosses in the coming weeks. But there's so much to like about this raid so far, from the unique structure and plot to some genuinely interesting boss mechanics to the weight of the continuing lore behind it, all helped along with two separate cinematics, with the first being at the top of the raid to set the scene. And you know my opinion on WoW cinematics, okay? We made a whole 25-minute analysis video on these two clips because that's the kind of thing we like to do. So imagine my surprise when it turns out that lots of people didn't like the cinematics, and the opening one in particular, because apparently it makes no sense. Yeah, that's right, the straw that broke the camel's back was not a planet appearing right next to our own planet, or a giant sword being thrust into the Earth's crust. The thing that killed our suspension of disbelief wasn't a flying psychological ghost galleon with arcane laser cannons, no, it was a gnome surviving falling through the floor after a wooden ballista landed some way behind him, and people who hadn't played the war campaign not knowing why some stuff was happening. You blew it, Gregory, you finally went too far this time. And then there was the end of the raid not having a cinematic, which combined with final boss Jaina not dying or even really being defeated, just essentially getting bored and porting out when she remembers she left the iron on, giving the raid a slight sense of anticlimax maybe. But honestly, I feel like we as a player community, and especially as a creator community, spend so much time criticising, and rightfully so, that it's only fair we give a big thumbs up when Blizzard totally nails it, and they certainly appear to have done with this raid. And look, and I promise this is the last time I'll mention this, okay, but obviously the idea for this raid happened probably years ago, so I'm not going to suggest that when we had the idea for this raid on our channel last March that it influenced Blizz in any way, because I honestly don't think it did. All I'm saying is, if we ever needed to pretend that our idea influenced them to create the most entertaining raid in years, then to be honest, we've got a pretty good case, and I feel kind of proud about that. And with players greedily chowing down all the brand new fun times, we had another treat this week, a live developer Q&A with Ian and Law. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, have they ever answered anything in a Q&A since BfA launched? Why do they still do these? Which seems to be a pretty popular opinion. There's this perception, this belief that Ian talks a lot but doesn't really address anything. Which I've said before, I don't particularly agree with. I think that there's a big difference between someone not answering a question and just not giving the answer that you want to hear, which I think is what happens more often. And predictably enough, there were plenty of comments after this stream complaining that Ian expertly talked for 60 minutes without saying anything, which I think may be a little bit unfair actually, because after watching this latest Q&A, I feel I now know loads of stuff that I didn't know before. And I'm not talking about the revelation that Ian is a total sassmeister.
All the hard-hitting questions. We're gonna get pet battles in. We're gonna get clipping issues on helms. It's so hard not to troll. I'm sorry.
It is. It really is. Let's go to this first question.
Speaking of trolls.
From Mamea. Yeah, that's actually a good transition.
So, things we learned. They're going to change it so that you can have all 50 of your character slots on the same server. They're going to introduce a way to share war resources among all your characters. There's not going to be a PvP vendor. Yeah, okay, so this may not have pleased you. In fact, I can pretty much guarantee that it didn't. PvP vendor demands are one of the loudest and most constant requests I've heard all expansion. And as I think I may have mentioned, I only really started doing PvP properly this expansion. So the current reward system is the only one I've ever got to know up close and personal. I'm saving up currency, even though it takes the form of filling a bar, it's the same thing, to get special PvP gear as I go along. Apart from the order that I acquire those items being dictated to me, that feels quite a lot like a vendor to me, but I fully accept that most people know a lot more about this than I do, and they all really want a vendor and think it would be better, and I'm willing to defer to them on this and assume that they must be right and that it would be better. And so now I'm upset that Blizzard, or should I say Activision Blizzard, aren't making it better by adding a vendor. Boo. We got a really interesting insight into the reason Zandalari trolls and Kul Tiras humans have taken so long to be made playable as an allied race. The Zandalari being listed as one of the races that would be available at the launch of BfA initially, before being replaced with Magar Orcs and pushed back to 8.15 with the Bear Boys, another pretty dependable complaint for a while now. And whereas I agree it would have been much better if both of these races had been unlocked a good patch earlier, it was constructive to hear Ian explain the technical process behind why that's the case. That it was essentially a last-minute decision to add the Kul Tiras as a playable option at all, because their rig is unique in a way that no other allied race is, and when it was decided they would be included, the extra work meant 8.15 was the earliest they would possibly be ready, which if you look at the still very limited facial customization options available to the race, I can totally believe, to be honest. And it makes sense that if you are going to give the Alliance Kul Tiras, the Horde would get Zandalari trolls at that point, which is why they were swapped out with the Magar. Basically what it comes down to is that if the Zandalari had been included at launch instead of the Magar Orcs, then we wouldn't be getting our lovely strong noble bear humans at all. Even though I still think it would have been better to get these new races a full patch ago, I at least feel I know a pretty compelling reason why they weren't, whether or not I agree with that reason. There was an acknowledgement of the recent problems with server stability, as you'd expect, and the most detailed explanation yet of how the new Heart of Azeroth system will work in 8.2, which was super interesting. Basically, it's going to be quite a lot like the artifact weapon, isn't it? With different permanent traits being obtained from different in-game activities. So one might be gained by defeating a raid boss, another by doing PvP, etc. Which after you've obtained them, you can level up and alter, and presumably that leveling up of the traits that you've acquired would be the reason to keep earning AP, which sounds pretty promising. And also, and I'm tempted not to go here, but I just couldn't resist, it also raises the possibility of some in-game challenges being specifically created to award specific traits, like maybe specific challenges created for specific classes to award specific traits, like maybe specific, okay fine, they just do another mage tower challenge to reward a cool trait, okay? I just want another mage tower. Is that such a crime? I think there could definitely be potential for some traits which are purely cosmetic too, like maybe some make you visibly glow with Azerite power or something. I don't know, I think it would be cool and I really want another mage tower, so yeah. There was also this question.
Can you explain the rationale behind Alliance getting the opportunity for eye level 400 gear this week, and likely every week for engaging in world PvP?
Okay, right, maybe I should add some background to this one, because Alliance are so unwilling to get down and dirty in war mode in BfA that Blizzard have tried all manner of tactics and temptations to nudging them back into it. One is of course upping the extra rewards for toggling fight mode from 10 to 30%, and the other is on weeks where there's really lopsided difference in the factions, a quest called Against Overwhelming Odds, which rewards a piece of heroic raid level gear for killing 25 of the opposing faction in the open world. So this week, when the item levels of current heroic raid gear went up to 400, so did the reward for this quest, which basically means that Alliance players had an extra chance at a piece of eye level 400 gear over their Horde counterparts in the very week that a new raid opened, which, you know, you'd imagine is just the kind of thing that might cause some tension among the player base, but perhaps surprisingly, totally didn't, especially not on the forums. Maybe it was the excitement of the new raid, maybe it was people remembering back to when Horde got the very first Warfront before Uldir opened, but whatever the reasons, you actually had to look really hard to find any. No, it was a shit show. Obviously. It feels like Blizzard is literally pissing in my mouth and telling me to enjoy it, and there is nothing that they can do about it. No eye level 400 for the Horde? Goodbye, Blizzard. Why not just give world first titles out in your emissaries, you scum? Okay. So first of all, Ian says himself in the Q&A that in hindsight, the reward being at 400 was probably a bit high, and that if this quest even appears again, which if it succeeds in evening out the amount of Horde and Alliance war moders, it won't, then it's probably going to be at around 385, which seems fairer, certainly. But I think the whole reaction brings up an interesting question, which I often think about with regards to WoW. What does an advantage even mean? I think in this case people are upset mostly because it's the first week of a new raid, and because of this free loot, Alliance are getting a perceived advantage in the raid. But an advantage over who? There are realistically 3 or 4 guilds in the world who could be considered to be entering this raid competitively, as in to beat the raid before someone else, and this reward isn't going to impact that race. So if a faction has an advantage in the raid because of this, who is that advantage over exactly? And that's a genuine question. I'd love to hear your opinions on this. It has been pointed out that this isn't the only nice piece of gear that Alliance players have exclusive access to this week either. Since the Darkshore Warfront just popped, there's another 400 item up for grabs there too. But that's only for North American servers. EU servers suddenly became incredibly efficient with their contributions, and even though we warned them last episode,
if the Alliance on EU somehow got their shit together and opened up Darkshore before Wednesday, they would have actually played themselves, because the item level boost wouldn't kick in until it flipped to Horde control.
That's exactly what they did, and they totally played themselves, popping Darkshore a day before the reset and missing that sweet upgrade when Season 2 launched. So if these things really are an advantage, then I guess we should be expecting World First to be won by a US Alliance guild. Does that sound about right? Or at least an increase of US Alliance guilds in the top 10? Top 100? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. There's the other complaint, of course, that this reward has encouraged Alliance raids to camp horde flight points to reach their 25 kill tally, which is basically making being a hordey on war mode pretty miserable, and I can understand that. I will be the first to admit, shamefully, that when I was doing this quest on stream just before raid and I only had a few minutes left, I too resorted to taking in the glorious view from my favourite spot in Sethralis, which also just happened to be a flight point, and fighting any horde that just so happened to arrive there for whatever reason. But not in a raid, because if I had, then I wouldn't have got credit for the quest. And let's be fair here, there's a reason I knew that was a good place to hang out. It's because I have been taken out in that exact same spot by countless horde groups since BfA launched. And perhaps it's the fact that I play both sides of this conflict pretty regularly, and that gives me slightly more perspective, but I really don't buy the whole never in my life have I been in or seen any horde form groups just to camp Alliance at their flight point. Yeah, methinks the lady doth protest too much, because that is bullshit. It happens all the time on both sides, and you know what? It's kind of fun. I find it fun. Sorry, I just do. But look, it stands to reason that if you don't spend your time camped at an enemy faction flight point or mission hub, then of course you aren't going to see the groups that are camped there, are you? And it therefore stands to reason that the only time you will ever experience such groups are when they are camping your faction's stuff. So it's always going to seem like the other faction does it more than yours. Cool, this is long, isn't it? But before we finish with the Q&A, I want to give a special congratulations to our host, because Law, you earned it.
Next question comes from Colin the Tank, comes from Abroek, Dradeka, BB Mezzi on Twitter, Acris, Poo F413, from Felrin, who says Narillin on Twitter, Raging Wolf, Wasselin, Galcresh, Azamane, Jito, from Scartotem on Twitter. It's actually another one from Wasselin, from J-Funk Gaming on Twitter.
Every single name pretty much correct. Congratulations, mate. Look forward to you repeating the feat next time.
A flying pig mount! Sorry if that's a bit sudden, but I honestly can't think of a subtle build up to that, and I don't think it needs one anyway, because it's a flying pig mount. It's for the Chinese Year of the Pig! That's in China. So like with the Year of the Dog and Shu Zhen last year, Chinese players will get this new big round bouncy boy when they buy 6 months of game time, and assuming that goes the same way as Shu Zhen, that means it'll be making its way onto the WoW in-game shop for Western players in due course. And look, I know we hate the shop and everything, okay? I know we agreed on that, and that's fair. I'm totally on board with that. But, you know, it's a flying pig, which is funny anyway, even before all the great, well, you said pigs might fly before you'd resub to WoW again, and here we are, jokes that it will enable. Don't think we aren't going to make those jokes when the time comes, because we are. Anyway, get your spoiler hats on, guys, because it's that time of the week where we start to dig around in the 8.1.5 PTR. And so it's time to remind you about our spoiler bots. And as you can see, we've made some changes to them this week. Some of our colorblind viewers pointed out that having orange and red spoiler bots meant that they couldn't tell them apart. So from now on, we will be using Blue Bot, who will be there to warn you about stuff that is in the public domain and technically a spoiler, but involves a new feature that you'll likely want to know about in advance. Like, for example, the new Hattie questline in 8.1.5 that looks like it will allow Beast Mastery hunters to retrieve the second goodest boy in WoW to be a regular pet with different tints, which would be awesome if anyone still played Beast Mastery in 8.1.5, and something that most people will be okay hearing about, unless they really hate hearing anything in advance at all. I'm looking at you, Patrick Beja. Bluebot is your spoiler bot, okay? And Redbot is for stuff that no one would know at all if it weren't for some genius at Wowhead rummaging around in the code and dragging it kicking and screaming into existence. And these bots took quite a lot of work to make, and we had to cut a raid tier to make them possible, so I hope you like them. And actually, everything we've got this week comes well and truly under Redbot territory. So, Patrick, that means we'll see you for the sofa bit at the end, okay? Seriously, don't watch this bit and then come crying to us because we ruined the story for you, okay? Because this is some big shit going down here, fam, even if it's mostly stuff that we've already reported on before, but more fully realized in the latest build. So you know how a couple of weeks ago we were really excited because we learned that at the end of the Xalatath questline coming in 8.1.5, you freeze Xal'atath from her Naifu prison, and in doing so, awaken N'Zoth. And we were thinking, man, I cannot wait to see that cutscene when we awaken N'Zoth. Well, okay, here's the cutscene when we awaken N'Zoth.
I have dreamed your destiny, mortal. The hour is close at hand. That which was sunken shall rise. All that were sleeping shall be awakened. Receive my gift and see all truths before you.
And yes, in case you're wondering, what we just saw there was the first in-game reveal of the final old god N'Zoth. Taliesin, would you do the honors? Now, I know some of us might be a bit disappointed that this is an in-game cutscene and not a full-blown rendered cinematic, and I understand that. But it's also good to remember that when these appear in the live game, they usually look considerably more impressive than when we see them in the PTR. And the great thing about an in-game cutscene is that they allow your character to be a central part of the action. So this is so much more than the reveal of N'Zoth. This is N'Zoth revealing himself to you and getting all Zira on your character and kind of forcing his gift upon you, which, let's be honest, is stupid because there's no way my character would be struggling like that. She welcomes her new tentacle overlord with open arms. But it certainly does seem that Blizzard are determined to make what happens with N'Zoth and Azshara, well, kind of our fault. Which is kind of good because, you know, we kind of need this shit to go down so that Nazjatar gets raised and we have somewhere to hang out and raid at 8.2. But kind of bad because we might be responsible for the destruction of the planet or whatever. And also, what exactly is Xal'atath? We used to say she was old god related, but she's clearly more than that, isn't she? Is she a Void Lord? A servant of the Void Lords? Or is she something completely different that we've never even heard of before? Whatever happens with her in the future, I really hope that's our fault too. And hey, while we're making your character responsible for terrible stuff happening, how do you feel about being responsible for the death of Baine Bloodhoof? A couple of weeks ago, we saw some data-mined broadcast text that revealed part of the 8.1.5 war campaign that suggested players would have another difficult choice to make in Horde affairs. And this week, the mission was made playable. Players help Baine Bloodhoof liberate the forsaken Derek Proudmoore from Sylvanas' clutches to return him to his family, which you do because, come on, you always do whatever you're told by the first person that asks. That's how this game works. But at the end of the quest, you get the option to keep Baine's secret for him or dob him into the war chief. And there's a sequence at the end that results in Baine being officially arrested by Sylvanas for actual real-life treason, and basically, it's not looking great for Baine. So in the short term at least, this decision doesn't impact the events of the narrative, and the choice is purely an RP option, but sometimes that's enough, you know? It also means one of Anduin and Jaina's bestest bosom horde buddies is in serious danger, and seriously, what are they gonna do about it? Don't forget Baine and Anduin are tight. Baine gave him the horn. Wait, is that right? The horn.
He gave him part of his horn.
He gave him part of his horn. Don't know which part, probably just the tip. I can't be the only one who assumed the faction war and the tension within the Horde would kind of be settling down a bit just in time for the reveal of N'Zoth and the new direction of 8.2, but it seems like exactly the opposite is true, and that actually the stakes are reaching their highest in the war campaign at the exact moment that N'Zoth shows up and the Azshara threat begins to loom, which could get pretty messy for everyone involved. As always, if you want to look into any of this stuff more, then we've linked all of the relevant Wowhead articles below. And this week we're doing you an extra solid and linking their Battle For Dazar'alor guides too, so you can read up and make sure you totally beat Stormwall Blockade next raid night. Okay, no promises, but the guide will help, I'm sure.
Ooh, long episode that.
Yeah.
But we had a lot to get through. We don't even
we
have
did.
time to talk about exactly how terrible we were in raid.
What are you talking about? It went really well.
Yeah, like, the thing is, like, Horde guilds are sitting there going, well, they didn't do too bad. They got to the third boss. No, Alliance guilds, no, we only got to the second boss. That shit's in a different order. But we had a really good time.
I'm going to make a compilation of me being amazing at that bit in Jadefire Masters when you have to look at all of the monks, because I am so good at that. I'm like the only person.
Are you basically saying it's the noobs in our guild letting you down? Letting you, Evitel, world-famous YouTuber, down?
Yeah.
Good, excellent. Okay, now, we've got some important stuff to get through. First of all, we have an announcement to make.
Yes.
Now, those of you who've been following the trials and tribulations on this channel recently will know that, to cut a long story short, in December, I bled on my graphics card, and the graphics card broke, and we've been without a desktop PC ever since, because we couldn't afford a new graphics card, because we spent it all on a gold helicopter to go racing with Belilar, and we didn't have any more money. So we've got some thank yous to make. We would like to thank you for watching the videos, even though they sometimes came out a bit late, because we had to work on our laptop to get them done. We want to thank especially our patrons for supporting us throughout the last 2 months, and without whose help none of the videos that have come out in December and January would have happened at all. And now we've got someone else to thank, haven't we, Evitel?
We do. We would like to say a massive thank you to EVGA.
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 Okay, like, the thing is, I have an official partnership with Evga, so I think I know how to say it right.
But it's funny because I do too.
Yeah, well,
it's just weird.
We'll just have to agree to
happens.
disagree on that. There is no right or wrong in this conversation. It's not like it's a proper noun. Thank you, Evga, or EVGA, whatever you want to be called. I guess it's your choice. Because they sorted us out with not just any old graphics card, but only an RTX 2080 Ti, which I have very carefully placed in the PC. I hardly bled on it at all, and so far is magnifique.
It's
It is. Are Evga a French company? I feel like they must
Were
be.
you French or Italian?
Because this
'Cause
is,
this is a bit...
magnifique is clearly French.
Yeah, but you were doing like this.
Magnifique. That's clearly French. RPC is the beast it was again, once more, but even more so, thanks to Evga, and they might even be helping us build a new PC for you as well.
We shall see.
Which
We've got
awesome.
their little logo up
you'll
there.
see their logo on our end card from now on. You'll find a link to their products in our descriptions from now on, and on our Twitch stream as well. Actually, this isn't even a show, right? Because I was going to risk taking the case off and putting it in the water cooling loop. Like I did. That's how I broke the last one.
Yeah.
And I was a bit scared about that, but actually I tried it out, and the cooling on this is so awesome.
Yeah.
Like, and Evga do make like the best cooling on their cards. I genuinely think that, which is why I was so happy that they sorted us out.
Yeah.
So I was able to just put it straight in the PC. The water cooling now just does the CPU, and it's awesome. So they made my life a whole lot easier. Thank you, dudes. Like, genuinely, actually, that was really cool. There's a little preview we'd like to give you as well for a video coming out next week, because we were lucky enough to be asked to interview Jeremy Fiesel,
The one and only.
a lead game director on World of Warcraft, and interview him we did over Discord. The subject of the interview was content and future content, and we thought, well, that's pretty vague. We'll just ask him loads of stuff about 8.2. And he only bloody went and told us.
We started a lot of stories on islands that kind of kicked off from these one-time quest giver quests that you saw. Things like, hey, there's something going on with the Mantid. They haven't even...
Yeah, I remember when you totally baited me, saying that I had to go and meet Rathion, and then he wasn't there, and that's when I knew I would never trust you again.
All of those are setting up stuff. You're gonna see some of those threads get pulled on as we go through the patch process. So I think it'll be interesting to take a look at which of those are things that you think will take off, and where are they going to go? Because a couple of them are going to go to some pretty interesting places as we move forward.
So are you saying that some of them will definitely turn into something in this expansion?
They will. Yep.
See, I think I'm glad I asked that question now.
Uncertainty.
Okay. That is just a little taster of some of the gold.
I would
The
say that taster was magnifique.
Yeah, he is magnifique, we are magnifique, the information we got out of him, 8.2 is magnifique. I mean, there is some stuff there which literally has not been heard before, about stuff which is coming in 8.2, which, like, I know we're really pumped about, and we can't wait to get that interview out to you in the week, so make sure you watch that as well. But thank you for joining us today. If you like this video, don't thank us, thank our patrons who give their actual real life money to make all of our videos happen any old time. So without you guys, there would be a whole lot less Taliesin and Evitel. If you didn't like it, downvote the shit out of it. And remember...
My name is Franone.
No.
I wish it was. She's amazing.
No, she's awesome. Did you see that picture she did of, like, Azeroth?
Lady Azeroth.
Lady Azeroth.
Oh my god. What a
That
babe.
was... magnifique. This is me kissing a tiny little mouse. My name is Taliesin from me.
And me, Evitel.
Until next time, cheerio.